Hello, hello everyone. We'll be starting shortly, just waiting for a few more people to come and join.
Hi folks, sorry I was a bit late. I had to re-sign in.
Hey, Maxim, good
Hey.
evening.
All good, no worries.
We're happy you're here. Shall we test just your slide? Obviously, cam and mic is all good.
Yep. So can we see some slides?
Yeah.
Perfect. Yay. Awesome. So I'll stop sharing because I know you'll do an intro, I think. And then I have a workbook link that I'll pop in basically in a little bit, halfway through. I'll put that in the chat. You're muted,
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was muted. Yeah, that's right. Just my colleague Musadika needs 2-3 minutes at the start, and maybe we wait a few more minutes as well for more people to join, maybe like 5:30, 4 or 5, something like that.
Perfect.
So there's still time to get a cup of tea or water or whatever you guys need. Start 5:35.
Just give it hopefully another couple more minutes for people to join us, and then we'll get underway. Hello to those of you that have just joined. We're going to give it another minute or so. If you guys think that'll be good, and then we'll get started.
Okay, I think we can go ahead and get started now. Can everyone hear me and see me okay? Amazing. Awesome. So, hi everyone, I'm Sadika from We Network. Some of you here may already be signed up to our services and knows how everything works, but for those joining us for the first time, I'm just going to spend a few minutes to run through how to access all of our full services and to get a picture of how we run things here. So I'm going to share my screen really quickly. You have to bear with me as well because I know there's a delay on my Teams. So let me know if you guys can see my screen. You should be able to see it here. Yep. Okay. So if you guys actually just head straight to the bar and you can just type in westminster.ac.uk/we network, this will take you to our webpage and everything you need is on here. So if you scroll down a little bit, you can see we have 2 programs running, Freelance Essentials and Startup 101, which is what this workshop is a part of. Click here and you can have a little run through of all of the workshops that we have on. So obviously today is going to be on AI and using it to support your startup. But we have loads of other workshops in this program. So one on accounting and finance. In 2 weeks' time, we have our session on product and market fit. So all encompassing basically to support you in your startup. We also have one-to-one appointments that you can book with experts. So if you need that really tailored specific advice in any area, you can head to our app and book an appointment about that. So you can see we have if you need help with AI technology, marketing and branding, even just general startup advice, you can literally just book it on the app, which I'll show you in just a second. We also have a community mixer, really exciting, a networking event that we have at the end of our program. It's a nice networking event where there's free food and drinks, and it's basically pitching. So you stand up on stage and you pitch your business, like 60 seconds, we teach you how to do it and we give you an opportunity to do it there. And then you get £500 as a grant, so you don't have to pay that back, and you get that to support your business. So if you scroll down, you can click how to apply and it will take you to our app. Mine is going to look a bit different because I am admin, but once you click that button, it will take you to the app and you can submit your application there. And then if you run straight to the events tab at the top, you can see all the appointments that I was just talking about. So you can see the funding and investment appointments, marketing and branding, general startup advice. You can just click on one of those and book it, and the link to attend is right there. And then you can also see all the other events. So obviously today is AI for startups. We have events that run in Freelance Essentials as well. So you can see the other programs. If you feel like that is your vibe as well and you want to just pop in and see how that goes, you can also attend those events as well. Next week is engagement week. So we do have a break from these sessions, but in replace that, we have the Careers and Enterprise Festival. So that's going to be a nice event from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m, a day of like networking, workshops, something you can attend in the meantime. And for those wondering, okay, if I need slides, I need access to all of the workbook and things like that, you can just head straight to the courses tab and you scroll down, you hit the right year, that would be good. 25, 26 starts at 101. And then in here for each session that we have, you can basically have the slides, the workbook, and the live session recording. So yeah, everything is on this app basically. If you want to find out more about how we can support you, you can also book a 20-minute Explore Enterprise appointment with myself or one of my team members, which I'll just drop the email in the chat, and you can email us, or if you're on Career Zone, you can basically book an appointment there and we can help you further. And that is it from me. I'm going to pass it over to Maxime. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And how exciting is it that you get to have this kind of support, you get to pitch, you get to like get a grant, like, I don't know. I just think it's really cool because when I was at university, we did not have this amount of stuff, but hey, that's me. Anyway, you're here for AI tools for startups, and it's an interesting session. We do this session every year, and every year it's a little bit different. And this year we have a bit more of a focus on the startup piece. But I'm curious if folks want to put in the chat, like, where are you with your business? So are you at the idea stage? Are you already like consulting, or like, you know, do you have clients? Are you already selling something, or somewhere in between?
Can even start a little poll actually.
Sure. We can do a poll, but if folks want to type it in as well. So for example, ideation and market research, then MVP, primary research, great. Because that starts to give me an idea a little bit of how we want to use AI kind of to support what stage we're at. And I'm glad, because it looks like it's the right stage. But if anyone has any other questions or says, hey, you know what, I'm at this stage, I'd love to know more about it in this kind of application, feel free to let me know. We've got time for Q&A and so on at the end. The way that today's session will look like is I'll go over a couple of basic principles, then I'll give a demo, then I'll share the workbook, and y'all can do basically this exercise for your business, your idea, and your startup. And then any questions that you have, please pop off mute or feel free to type it in the chat, and we can kind of brainstorm, troubleshoot, all that kind of stuff together. So hopefully that gives you a rough overview of what to expect. A little bit about myself before I start sharing slides and diving in. I've been in tech for 16 years now. And I studied computer science, and I remember AI was incredibly exciting, and it seemed just so far away and cool, and somewhat impossible, but yet here we are in just 16 years further down the line. I'll share a bit more about this in our slides, but when I went into university, the iPhone had just launched, and by the time I left, I had a job as an iOS developer, so I was developing apps, and that's a lot of what I've done in the last 15 years. And so I know a thing or two about new jobs emerging and like not being sure if you're going into an existing job but that already was there, or that's now disappeared, or like new things appearing. And so I'm sure with AI, folks here are also thinking like, gosh, what does the future look like? I mean, obviously we don't know, but the way I look at it is you're better off trying to figure out how to use it and make it work for you rather than just panicking. So hopefully that is kind of what this session today will give you. And if you have any questions in the future, do let me know. But then the big thing, my work is always really centered around how people can use products. I find it really odd when you have to learn technology. Really, ideally, it should just work. The design and the way that things are set up should be intuitive enough for folks to understand. With AI, we still have a very long way to go. And so that's a lot of what I'll be talking about today as well, in terms of how can you get the most out of it, because a lot of people are not really leveraging AI well enough, given that how powerful it is, purely because AI doesn't quite give you any tips on how to use AI, if that makes sense. So that's a little bit about me. I've worked for a variety of different startups, apps that got acquired by Microsoft, lots of cool stuff, but I'll leave it at that. If anyone's got questions, you can always ask me. But I'm not so interesting. AI is much more interesting. So let's kick this off. Bear with while I start sharing my screen. All right, folks can see it? We're good to go? Awesome. So the first thing I really want to talk about is what is AI? Because I think it's not covered enough. It's just this like cool new technology. It has a fancy name and we kind of know that we can chat with it, but like, what is it actually? So typically speaking, it's actually quite a broad field. It's a lot of different techniques that are used to create intelligent computer systems, with the goal of basically creating machines or software that can perform tasks that normally require human intelligence or discernment. So, for example, it can recognize speech, it can recognize images, it can understand natural language that can be told in different ways. Like maybe we all send a different instruction to something like ChatGPT, but it understands what we're trying to do, even though you and I might write that instruction slightly differently, right? And ideally, it can make some decisions. Now, in simple terms, what that means is AI allows you to use software to do things that normally you would expect a person to do manually. But it's actually a really large field. So different techniques that you can see in that are called machine learning, computer vision, neural nets, robotics, natural language processing. Machine learning is something that we've had for a long time already. So the way that Google's worked for a very, very long time is based off a lot of machine learning techniques where basically the machine tries to learn and understand about a document. What is this document about? So in the very beginning stages of Google, you have a lot of what we call keyword search. And so people would also keyword stuff their websites. So if you just repeat the phrase spa holiday over and over and over again, if someone would be looking for a spa holiday, you'd be like one of the first people to come up. But all of that maths and that calculation was based on machine learning. Equally, computer vision, like there's all kinds of different things going on. The type of AI that we're talking about now is called generative AI. And that's actually quite an important distinction. So AI output is generative and it's not been predetermined. So I'm going to take a moment here to go into like a couple of technicalities about code, and I hope you'll stick with me. It's worth it. And then we'll like go and do lots of fun stuff. But basically, the way that computers or software works is that the software engineer or the programmer has in advance thought about every potential step that could happen. And so really, it's just a boring set of instructions typed to the computer saying, if this happens, then I need you to do that. If this other thing is the case, then I need you to do that. If this other thing is the case, I need you to do that. Which is exactly why we get errors and bugs, because sometimes people click something or do something that we've not anticipated as software engineers. And therefore the system is like, I don't know what to do. Error, right? But the thing with AI is it works very differently than that. So the comparison I like to make is you learn to cross a road, right? Probably when you were young, you were taught look left, look right. This is how you cross a road. It's interesting because now that you have that skill, even if you've never been at a crossing before, so this is in Japan, right? You would still know how to cross a road because you have now adapted to that skill, even though there might be more lanes or there might be different types of vehicles on the road, etc. And so rather than it being a predetermined type of action that you can only do in certain settings, it's something that you can adapt. What's also interesting is that every time you cross a road, everything is different. The mechanism is the same. You're probably looking both ways. You're making snapshot decisions about whether or not you're going to wait or run the red light or whatever it is that you do, jaywalk. But every single car on the road, every single person, every single cyclist is different. The way that you cross the road at 8 a.m. in the morning is different than 4 p.m. in the afternoon, is different from summer, from winter. Every single crossing is unique. And that's actually how it works with AI as well. So if we ask it the same question 10 times, it will give us a different answer every single time, because every single time it gets that question, it's as if it is a unique crossing. So when you also ask it to generate an image, chances are slim it will be able to create the exact same image every single time. This is also the reason why it's not always accurate. It's already gotten heaps better in the last 2-3 years, but it can still make things up that just sounds plausible because that would make sense, except it may not be real. And these are called hallucinations. If you actively want to avoid them, one of the things you can use, especially on ChatGPT, is the research functionality, because it tends to cite all of the sources. And so it becomes much easier to figure out and double check where AI got its information from. So that's just a little bit of background so we understand, like, how does it actually come up with answers? It's basically learned it from studying thousands, millions, billions of documents of things that we as humans have written and created. And it basically tries to copy us. And it's doing a really good job at it. So good that it seems completely plausible and faultless, but that's usually not the case. But regardless, it can help us with a lot. So what can I do? Every year I do this workshop, and I still come back to the very first instance where this kind of took the world by storm, which is when AI was used to generate this cover, the cover of Cosmopolitan. And it said actually at the bottom, this cover is generated by AI and it only took 20 seconds to make. It's not entirely true. Yes, it took 20 seconds to generate this image from that specific prompt, but the artist had been working for 2 weeks trying to learn, how do I best get the right images from AI? What's the right way to kind of explain what I want? So it was something like, you know, female astronaut struts down moon, like, and then, you know, specific notes about what the color and the whole style should be like. And this was 2021. And so it's quite a while ago, and now we are here today and people are creating all kinds of beautiful works. This is the first AI image ever to win a award. So basically at the Colorado State Fair, they had a division for digital art or digital manipulated photography. And the person submitted this and they won. And then there was an entire uproar about the fact that it was actually AI generated and not created using something like Photoshop or Procreate, where you're actually drawing digitally, if that makes sense. But now, as time's moved on, it's become part of everyday life. So much so even that it's infiltrating the way that we work. So hiring managers would prefer to hire a candidate with fewer years of relevant experience, but more experience with artificial intelligence. And so I think that's a huge advantage when we're thinking about this idea of, will it replace us? Will it take our jobs, et cetera, et cetera? The chances are probably not yet, but it is likely things will change. So as I mentioned, when I went to high school, an iOS developer did not exist. Then as I went to university, the iPhone was launched, and suddenly that job became a thing. So what we'll be doing over the next 10 years will probably change again. But for the time being, you might as well leverage AI to work more effectively and faster, especially if you are thinking about starting a venture. Why specifically in this case? Well, the one thing about startups is that the cost of guessing is huge. And especially as students, we have been taught our entire life that there is a correct answer. There is typically a single right answer. And our job is to find it, to memorize it, to be able to produce it at the right time, in the right place, at the test, at the exam, on the essay, whatever it is. And then the teacher will go, oh, yes, you got the right answer. Good job. And you get full marks. With entrepreneurship, there is no right answer. Everything is possible. It just depends. And it's your job to make a guess and then see if it's true, and then make another guess and then see if that works out, and then make another guess and see if that works out. So guessing is part of the game. But if you're guessing without double checking things, then the cost of that is huge. And it's because of this process that startups typically need about 2 to 3 times longer to validate their market and their proposition than they expect. So AI can help us really speed that up by basically helping us create micro experiments so that we can gather real world data, because the real world data is what has those answers. We can't know them upfront. We have to go out there, explore, try things, and then get those answers for ourselves. And we can make that so much faster with AI. So we're going to talk about prompting. But before I do so, because now we're getting into tactical bits, I want to pause and see if there are any questions about what we've covered so far. Feel free to come off mute or type it in the chat. Otherwise, I'll continue on. But just wanted to
Hi,
give everyone...
Maxim.
Yes, hi.
This is Ashish here. I was just wondering if you could just give us some insight into how AI differs from artificial general intelligence, if you could.
Artificial what intelligence? Sorry, I didn't fully catch that.
AGI? AGI?
Oh, general intelligence. So, as I mentioned, there's different flavors of AI. So artificial general intelligence is, in my opinion, slightly where we've gotten to, which is an AI that knows a lot about a lot of things. Whereas you can also have AI that's really specialized in specific things. What we're seeing with ChatGPT and so on is that it's very good at certain creative tasks and written tasks because it's been trained on that kind of knowledge and information. But if you were to ask AI to fix your boiler or something like that, it wouldn't really know how to do that apart from potentially any sources it has on reference manuals of boilers that it managed to read, right? So it feels like it's general, like it knows everything about everything, but it doesn't quite yet. And so artificial general intelligence one day would be a bit like the way that we treat Google, who can just give us an answer to just about everything, right? AGI ideally would do the same, but in order to do that, it needs to train and learn about so much more than we've already done. But it is starting to feel like that. So I hope that gives you some insight. Also, Christina, I see you've raised your hand as well.
Yes, hi Maxim, thank you for your presentation. So I was wondering if you could provide some guidance on some artificial intelligence tools that we could use for business management or accounting or for customer relationship management. I mean, if there are like some innovative artificial intelligence tools that we could use for competitor analysis or for product development. So for example, when I was developing an health tech platform, I used a bit of Claude and Perplexity. And Claude nowadays is amazing because it actually generates the all HTML code, and it also gives you the preview of the platform that you want to use, and then you can simply embed HTML code. So I was wondering if you could give us some guidance of some innovative tools that we could use to scale our business and become more competitive. Okay.
Absolutely. So that will be part of the demo. We're going to be looking at a tool called Lovable today. And I also want to share with you different ways of using things like ChatGPT to do that. Claude, obviously, Claude is my favorite. It's the one I use all day, every day. We're going to be looking at ChatGPT just because it's the one that's most widely accessible. It's the one that most people use, but the same principles apply. The only caveat I'll give you is accounting. So as I mentioned, Gen AI tries to make sense of stuff based on what sounds plausible. And so it can do accounting audits, but at the moment we're not at a stage yet where we fully trust everything that it creates. So there are some accounting softwares that are starting to have bits and bobs of AI because like based on some numbers, it can generate a report, it can generate a graph, it can give you some high level insights. And you can even use it that way, right? You can add a P&L, for example, so your profit and loss statement or a balance sheet or those types of documents into something like Claude and say, hey, can you what can I improve here? Is there stuff I can double down on? Like, should I be selling more of this versus that? Are my overheads too high for the type of business I'm running?
I have to be present at this meeting, but I'm going to try and mute. I've tried to, but I just...
Yes, let's see if we can mute you. I think Awesome, great. So it's good at the discussing around the data and around the numbers, if that makes sense, to try and figure out, okay, like how are my margins looking? How can I reinvest my profit, etc. It's less good at doing the entire audit for you, where you say, hey, this is what I've sold. Like, can you just figure out what my numbers are for this year? So I just wanted to answer that one real quick, and then we'll go through the rest as we go through the presentation, but I'd love to circle back in about half an hour to see if we're going in the direction that you'd like, or if there's anything more you'd like us to look at. So, prompting. It's hilarious because this has now become like an entire course for some people, right? Like you can specialize in how to prompt AI, which frankly I think is silly, but it is somewhat necessary because we've got what we call the blank page problem, right? When you log into AI, you get this beautiful screen and this box that says, hey, what can I help you with? What would you like to do? And you have absolutely no idea what's possible. Like, and I think we probably had that with Google back in the day as well, of like, hey, what could I even search for? But I think this is like 100-fold now with AI, where it's like, you know, it's capable of such amazing things, but you also don't know what. So it's overwhelming in a new kind of way. Typically speaking, this is Photoshop that you're looking at. A screenshot of Photoshop is also very overwhelming. If you've never used it before, there's a gazillion buttons. It's also a white page. And you're like, how do I even begin to draw a circle or a square, or let alone the really cool design work that I want to do? But what you start to notice is actually there's lots of stuff to look at. There's little icons on the left, and when you hover over them, they'll tell you things like brush or gradient or pen tool, etc. There's lots of menus, and over time, what ends up happening is that when you look at this, you recognize the tools. What we're having right now with AI is that you have to recall how to do stuff completely from scratch, and that's actually quite a challenge. So I'm going to try and simplify it, and then we'll test it out together later. But typically speaking, you want to think about a couple of different things when you're giving instruction to AI. So one is context, the other is role, task, and constraint. Most people just give the task and call it that. So, hey, can you give me some marketing ideas? What's actually the most important piece, in my opinion, is the context, which is, I am trying to market this. My goal is actually to convert these types of people. In that context, can you give me some marketing ideas? The piece that you often see on the internet is the role, like you are an excellent copywriter, or you are a marketing branding genius with 10 years of experience. I don't find, like, yes, it helps. It's not quite as necessary. You get the best output with AI, the more context you can give it. So what we actually just discussed with Christina, where it's like you can give it your actual numbers for your business. The conversation that you're then going to have about overheads or how to improve things is going to be so much richer than just saying, hey, how can I reduce overheads in my business? Because that context makes all the difference, right? So in a simple example, you could say, help me with my food delivery app idea. And it'll probably tell you some stuff, but this is how we get the generic output that people are a bit disappointed in, or it becomes very obvious when you're perusing the internet and people are using AI to generate content. Instead, this is a bit of a beefy prompt, but we're getting somewhere now. In order to parse it, I've highlighted bits for you. But you can say your context, right? You're a final year university student. What are you doing? You're developing a food delivery app. And specifically, what's unique about your app is that it focuses on student needs, so late night deliveries, smaller portions, or budget-friendly options. So I need you, AI, to help me validate this idea quickly and affordably. That part is going back to the guessing cost is huge, right? We're trying to get answers and real life data as soon as possible. Help me identify the 3 biggest risks. Now we're getting really specific tasks, right? And also suggest 2 to 3 low-cost ways that I could test this idea. Now we've gone from help me with my app to actually, this is a really concrete thing. And the type of output you'll get with this is going to be so much more interesting. And I'll show you in a minute. So then what tools are there? Well, it looks like everything nowadays is AI powered, and that is true to an extent. Everything's got AI integrated. But today we're going to be looking predominantly at ChatGPT, as well as something called Lovable for all of you who are interested in building a site or a simple landing page for your product or service, or if your product or service is actually based on an app or something like that. It should help you get started, at least enough to start to do your market research and get more data and information. As I mentioned earlier, the reason I'm looking at ChatGPT is just because it's the most easily accessible, and especially the free tier is quite generous. If you want to try different tools, personally, I love Claude by Anthropic. But ChatGPT is amazing too, especially the latest model 5 is very cool to play with. So, you know, take your pick as to what you want to use. So, quick demo. Bear with me as I change my screen sharing. All right, so this is the workbook that we're going to look at in a minute. And this is ChatGPT, right? What are you working on? Ask anything. This is what I mean. In my humble opinion, this is stunning. It's very minimalistic, but it's also horrible design because you have absolutely no idea what you can do. So let's put in that initial prompt. Let me grab it. Help me with my food delivery app idea. Now, if it's going to do its job well, it should be asking me some questions, but let's see. Great. So it's asking for clarification. I'll pop in the chat, by the way, Claude. And it's giving me like some steps, right? That's pretty cool. It's even saying how I should test this in the next 30 days in a low-cost way. So that's really good. Now, if you'd used a previous model of ChatGPT, what you'd get would be arguably a bit worse. 5 is really, really good. And so it also gives you options of next steps that it can take for you. But let's see how it behaves if we ask a kind of more beefy question that we prepared. And then we can compare the two. So we're still looking at 30 days, but it jumps straight in because it actually looks at the right kind of risks. So students don't care enough about the discounts to switch maybe from Deliveroo or Uber Eats. We can test it with polls or a landing page. The other risk is restaurants won't join or give discounts, because if we're trying to offer budget options for students in this delivery app, this hypothetical delivery app, we need to make sure that we can actually get enough cost savings that we can pass on to our students, right? And then there's logistics. So let's see if I'm going to compare that to what we had before. Help with my food delivery app idea. I think it already knows this from a previous chat. I forgot about that. So Claude, if I have different, whatchamacallit, different chats, it doesn't know about each other, but ChatGPT shares it. So it does also give kind of similar 3 assumptions and 3 risks. But in theory, we did not give it any context as to what food delivery app idea it was, right? And that's part of the restriction that you find when you ask AI or prompt AI with like kind of the more generic pieces. Whereas when we give it a lot more context, what we're seeing here is really concrete potential risks for this particular idea, and then also indeed ways of testing it. Because that allows us to now progress, as opposed to just, for example, doing market research and saying, hey, can you tell me if students would like this or not? Because AI can't help us answer that question, but it can help us help ourselves get real life data, right? So that's one particular way. Now, what I'm going to say next is, let's say that we want to test this with a fake landing page. right? We want to have a wait list, and we want to have something enticing for students to come and check out our particular delivery app product instead of Deliveroo or Uber Eats. So what I'm going to ask now is say, this is great, thanks. I'd like to create a enticing landing page that converts students to sign up to the wait list. I'd like to preview or demo what the app will look like and what the benefits are to get them to join the wait list. I'll be using Lovable to create this landing page prototype. Can you please write a thorough prompt for it? And we could stop here, but thinking again about context, just as important as what it's supposed to do, there's also about how it should do it. So what we haven't talked about is the look or style or feel of our app at all. Do we want to use like drawn pictures? Do we want it to look realistic? Do we want to focus on a certain cuisine versus other cuisines, right? That can really change how things look. And so the more information you can give it, the more accurate it's able to help you. So in this case, I might say, for the branding, I'd like it to be edgy, funny, and focused on late night student food. Bold colors, bold fonts. Let's give it a go. Now, if you're wondering what Lovable is, we'll go have a look at that in a minute, but that is one of the kind of cool tools that you can use. They have a free tier. You get a couple of credits, I think 5 credits a day, and then 30 credits a month, which should be plenty to create a landing page or concept for your app or a concept for your product, because you only need a couple prompts to do something like that. And so it's one of my favorite tools that I recommend now to folks who are looking to visualize their product or startup idea. So it is thinking. Actually, I'm super interested if folks can put in the chat, what's your favorite AI tool? Like, are you a ChatGPT user? Do you use something else? I'm curious to hear, because depending on what folks use, we can also look at a couple other tools. But I thought, let me keep it as simple as possible for today's session. Yay, we have another Claude user. Agreed. Perplexity. I've used Perplexity a little bit, but not super much. ChatGPT. It's nice that there's a mix. I've never heard of Fondi. Yeah, Gemini also, yeah, sometimes. Cool. So here we have a prompt for Lovable. It tells it the goal of what we're trying to do with this particular page, the brand, the layout, and here now we're starting to get really cool stuff, right? You may have no experience as to how to develop a website or an app, and so you might not be thinking about it like, oh, what's a hero banner? Or this is a CTA, a call to action button, or these are the visuals, or this is what, we call it a nav, is the navigation bar, or things like that, right? So, but when you're trying to describe what you want to create, it's really helpful to be able to go into that level of detail. However, we don't know what we don't know, but thankfully AI does know. And so working in between different AI tools is really helpful, because you can kind of also, there's the kind of dictate or voice note function, right? I like to dictate sometimes and just talk and say, hey, this is my idea. This is the kind of stuff I'm trying to do. These are the people I'm trying to help. This is ideally how I measure success. Like, I don't know necessarily where to start, but I want to create a website that encaptures all of this. Feel free to ask me questions. So firstly, with that last thing, the constraint of asking questions for clarification is really helpful because you then get AI to interview you. So rather than jumping to conclusions, it can ask for a lot of clarification from you, which is another great way to provide context, even when you're not quite sure what context you should be providing. But what it's done here is it's created like really technical descriptions of what the website should look like in a way that we don't necessarily need to know what that looks like, right? So we've got this really thorough prompt. We're going to copy it. And now we're going to head over to Lovable. So Lovable is one of these like, build something type of tools where it can create websites, apps, etc. It will write the code for you. That being said, I would use it predominantly to test ideas. And if ultimately you want to use the code, there's usually quite a bit of stuff that you want to adapt. But now it also works with Shopify and another couple of things, so it's really cool. There are other tools. You'll see a lot of ads for Base 44, but personally I use and like Lovable. But there's so many competing AI tools now, so pick the one that you like. But I'm basically going to give it that entire prompt and paste it. And ideally, it should start making us a website. So this looks and works a bit differently to ChatGPT, if this is your first time seeing it, because what it will show here on the right is a preview. So it says spinning up in preview. This currently is just like showing off what it can do. But you're basically going to see the website on the right. And then here on the left is where you're having the conversation, very much like ChatGPT, but you're doing that with Lovable, about the website, the design, the buttons, the style. And then ultimately, if you click around here, you'll be able to see if you want all the code that it's generated, but don't worry about that unless you want to get like technical and dive in to see how that looks and works. If you yourself can code, it's nice because it can start something for you and then you can make some adjustments and so on. But if it's not your thing, you don't have to go there. So at the moment, it's implementing, it's editing, it's doing stuff. In general, this process will take more time than chatting with ChatGPT, but it's worth the wait. I've not used Blink, by the way. I noticed in the chat someone wanted to know about Lovable compared with Blink. I can have a look at Blink in a minute whilst we do the exercise and get back to you, but I don't have an answer right off the bat. Sorry about that. Oh, great. So Blink V2 is amazing. I will check it out. The first edition of this this workshop, which I think, Ruben, is this the third or the fourth time that we've done this?
An AI session?
Yeah.
I believe the third.
It must be, because I don't think, yeah. In the very first session,
One a year.
Yeah, I put together an overview of most AI tools that existed at the time, and I tried most of them, and I showed some demos. However, there is so much now. It's really hard to keep up with. So that's actually a great option, is share the chat, like people's favorites, and then you can take notes as well, because I'm not, the one and all expert about this. I physically cannot try every single AI tool in the world, but yeah, we do every year. So they always ask me as well, like, hey, do you want to use the slides? And I'm like, from last year? And I'm like, well, we can't because it's already outdated. Sometimes, I remember one time we did this workshop and like a week later, ChatGPT announced this like massive update. And I think we sent a follow-up email about some information about that. But hey. But this is the fun thing, right? Your friends, your fellow students, your colleagues, like everyone around you, like is trying different cool things. And so sharing that with each other is great fun. So we'll have a look at Blink in a bit as well. So far, as you can see, AI is still thinking. It is still thinking. This takes a good while, but I'm very curious what you think about the result. It's now editing the waitlist form. So it's actually creating a real form that people can submit to join the waitlist for this supposed late night student eating app. But yeah, good times. If folks have any other questions in the meantime, feel free to put it in chat. And then in a little bit, I'll share the workbook, and then you can start playing around yourself with the things that you'd like to work on. And then we can kind of troubleshoot and dive in. I'm starting to think if Lovable was affected by that AWS outage yesterday. Did y'all hear about this? So a lot of the internet runs on something called AWS, which means Amazon's Web Services. And these are basically servers that exist in the world that are owned by Amazon, but it's your little space on the internet. And you rely on that in order to store your users' information, to store your product information, or things like that. And some of these servers went down yesterday, and it caused a lot of chaos in the world because everyone uses Amazon service. Here you go. How cool is that? So branding is absolutely what I wanted. Neon, like Night Bites, love the name. How it works, student perks, FAQ, join waitlist, super cool. So feed your brain, not your overdraft. How cool is that like little tagline? And so this is the thing, like you can use AI to create really cool stuff. The issue is you have to be very specific about the context and the type of thing you're doing to get these types of results. And so if you just said to Lovable, create me a delivery app landing page, chances are it wouldn't be quite this specific. But anyway, here are the benefits. So exclusive student discounts, smaller portions, and late night delivery from local favorites. Deadlines don't stop at dinner. Love it. Join the waitlist or see how it works. So how it works. Verify your student, pick a deal, pay how you like, and you get your late night delivery. These are the perks. It's even done the little hover buttons, featured deals, so we can see what people are interested in. Love it. Bring your mates, stack rewards, get your referral link, FAQ. All of this is working. And all of this is real code, by the way, guys. You could launch this if you wanted. And then there's join the beta. This is really exciting because of a couple of reasons. Firstly, with AI, you've already got really good messaging and copy, because typically speaking, like something like claim my spot is a really good piece of text to put on a button as opposed to join or submit, right? Typically a button would say submit. What we want when we're trying to entice people to be excited by our idea is we want to put much stronger wording there. So claim my spot already super, super good. And what we've got here is that without even having to build an app, we can start to gather information of whether people are interested. So we can get someone's name and email address. They can choose their campus. In this case, it was, I said like, oh, I'm a student in Manchester. So this is specific for Manchester students, but it can be whatever you like. And then what time do people usually order? So we can also see if everyone is ordering past midnight, it's only a select type of restaurant that we need to deal with. But if folks are actually ordering for lunch, then maybe we can do lunchtime deals, etc. So you can start to gather data and information really quickly with arguably, how long does this take? 15 minutes. And then if you want, you can publish this and link it to a domain, especially if you're going to pitch for that £500 grant, because the domain is like 10, 15 pounds. Link it up and you can start to collect information to see if folks are interested, right? That's as simple and quick as you could do. So now it's your turn. You don't have to go all the way with Lovable. So I'm going to share the workbook with you and see how we can get started. And you have the opportunity to kind of pick your AI adventure, if you will. So firstly, let me share the link. I had slides for this, but we'll skip that. Oh, Bubble AI. I'll have a look at that too. So when you come into this document, please go to File and make a copy. So we're not all going to work in this document. You won't get access to edit this document. What I would like is for you to keep your own version of this document that you can edit and come to and refer back to anytime you want. So in order to do that, you'll need to go to File, Make a Copy, and basically jump into your own version. Now, this is a little bit of a repeat of what I've spoken about. That's just there. If you come back to this in a month's time and you're curious, like what's going on again, you can read that, but you can ignore it for now. Here is a little review of those 4 parts that you want to include, but specifically context and task. But constraints is also helpful, and then role is also helpful if you really want. And here's that example of like a food delivery app idea versus something a lot more specific. So what we're going to try now is test your prompting skills, especially because, as we can see in the chat, people have experience using AI. What I'd like for you to do is add even more context than you do normally, and then see if this changes your output. And whether it does or doesn't, like you can ask questions and get some feedback on some of the prompts so that we can actually help you in the way that you use AI, right? So the rest of today's session is all about how you use AI and how we can improve that. Now, if you've already got a startup idea that you're thinking about, please go and use that. If you don't, I've put a scenario in, for example, a specialty coffee shop that is open 24/7 during exam periods, right? It's just there as an example idea because I want to make sure everyone can jump into their ChatGPT and, do stuff. So we're going to start with basic market research, customer understanding, and risk assessment. So those are 3 steps. So let's take 10 minutes now, put a prompt together and start asking ChatGPT about these things, thinking about those 4 pieces of information that you want to give. Ideally, if you've already got a description that you've used in the past to explain your idea to people, if you've even got a transcript from a conversation or a call, or you could even dictate and just ramble about like, hey, so I've got this app idea, or I've got this idea to go and do this, this, and this, and this. That's totally fine because the more context it gets, the more it's able to help you, right? Otherwise, if you want, you can also add this piece of context. And then afterwards, if you have any questions, pop out off mute or in the chat. I'll keep an eye on that. But also, this is something interesting to think about. What prompts gave you the most useful responses? Did you notice any change in the quality of the AI output depending on the amount of context, etc.? You don't have to answer these. These are just good questions for you to think about. You can also come back to them after this session. And then there's a couple of tips here. So this is ChatGPT. Then we've got Lovable, what I just demoed, in case you'd like to go back and look at that. Common pitfalls, don't worry about that just yet. But here are, if you wanted to get ahead, a couple of templates for specific prompts that might help. But I'd love for you also to try your own prompts and to see how that went. But all of these resources are there for you. So make sure that you make a copy of this workbook so you can access it whenever you need to. And for now, I'll put on some lo-fi beats and we can get going with that exercise. So we'll take 10 minutes or so for you to start doing some market research using ChatGPT on your idea or on the student cafe idea if you don't have anything for yourself just yet. Any questions? And we'll chat about Bubble in a bit.
I think we're all good for questions. No?
Perfect. Christina, yes, the document is accessible after the session. You can access it later and you can always still make a copy from it.
I personally think everyone's raring to go on this activity.
Let's do it. Let me see if I can share some lo-fi beats with Teams.
We have a question in the chat from Ashish. What are the issues and limitations from your experience with these AI apps?
Quite a few, and it's a good question. If it's all right, I would answer that just after folks are done with this 10 minutes, because otherwise it might be a bit jarring if they're trying stuff and then also listening, but I'll absolutely come back to that. The customer related prompt, that should be in the workbook for you. So if you scroll down, you'll have access to all of that. I was just, that's for Christina, by the way. probably have another 5 minutes or so. So if you want to move on from your first or second prompt to some of the last ones, now would be a good time. All right, folks, how did that go? Ashish, I'll get back to your questions about issues and limitations, and I have a couple more demo things to show as well. But first, I'd love to hear from the group if you noticed any difference with prompting with more context, if you have any questions about the type of, sorry, let me stop sharing, of the type of output that you got, or anything else that you'd like some thoughts or feedback on. Oh, great. So folks have had some success with Claude as well to stagger the prompt, although a couple of functionality issues. Oh, this is really great. Sorry, I'm just looking at your tremors and understanding triggers now. Tracking companion.
Yeah, it's crazy because we're kind of, this is the startup we've been building, but it's just crazy how much I got done in like 5 minutes of just prompting Lovable. It's pretty good.
Oh, that's fantastic. Oh, I'm so excited for you. Well, this is the magic, right? And so that actually segues very nicely into Ashish's question about the limitations of this, right? There are issues and there are limitations, most notoriously around scale and security. So if you create a full-on app or startup, right, in something like Lovable like this, I'm just checking because everyone seems very frozen for me.
I'm still here.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Thank you for some feedback. Suddenly everyone just looked like completely frozen. I was like, okay, let me just check. So it's a great tool to get you started. If you were to say, okay, we now have 10,000 customers ready to use, to sign on and use this, it might not be, you might need to do a little bit more work than just the AI version. That being said, far too often, folks let that be the enemy of good, right? Perfect, the enemy of good. They're like, oh, well, but it was AI. I can't know for sure that it's going to do things the right way, if it's going to be secure enough, but will it scale? And so they skip this entire phase around getting your first 5 customers, your first 10 customers, and your first 100 customers. And for that, these versions that you can do with AI, they work really, really, really well. So as I just shared with the student, like sign up in the wait list, like launch that. Like I could launch that by the end of tonight and see if students are willing to sign up. And maybe in a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, I've got at least 10, 15, 20, 30 students who are interested. And that's how a startup starts, right? So very often we're thinking about the infrastructure and the capabilities of AI instead of product market fit. And it sounds like you're going to do a session on like market research and product development, because it's so important to actually be creating something that people want to use and that they'll eventually ideally pay you for, whether that's the user or whether that's if you've got a marketplace, someone else, or, you know, there's different business models that you can follow. But testing that sooner rather than later is key. And for that, these types of AI tools are fantastic. So, you know, can it solve everything? Can it completely replace a development team? No. But can it get you answers quicker than anything has ever been able to for a fraction of the price? Absolutely. And that's how it should be used, in my opinion. Great. So Christina's also shared, try to understand better the challenges and wrote something to the customer. Yay, product market fit is the next session. Perfect. I'm just going to check out this other one. Ooh. Oh, wait, it's asking me to remix? So Christina's, for some reason, I can't share my screen with the way that Teams has just done this. So if anyone wants to check out Christina's as well, you can click on the link. So client challenge discovery. This is lovely. It's looking very good. So I'm glad folks had a good time using Lovable. I want to demo one more thing, unless we have another question. I'll just leave that open for folks whilst I get the next piece ready. Okay, based on the fact that everyone's quiet, let's continue on. So let me share my screen. Here we go. So this is super cool, right? We've got this website now for our little app. It's actually got a couple of different images, super cool. And we can start to get that feedback and that interest. If we click on join waitlist, it should really jump to this. So if that doesn't work, by the way, we should tell it to do that. Great. But we're actually missing one really big piece, which is, can we provide those discounted meals? And if we look back here in ChatGPT, it did also say, hey, like the restaurants may not join. They're already using other platforms, and maybe they don't want to deal with the hassle of student-only deals. So this is another really important thing for us to test. Not just like, hey, can I get students signed up? Although that's very important, and that will give us leverage when we want to talk to the restaurants, because we can say, hey, look, we've got like 150 students on our wait list, and we can bring you these customers if you're willing to work with us, right? But we actually also want to understand the pain points of the restaurants and how things are working for them, and if we can do things better. So something we can ask as well is great, we've got this website now. I'd love to connect with the restaurant owners and learn more about their current system and issues, I'd also to introduce myself and set the tone for a partnership in the future, perhaps quickly explain what we're doing, and that we have 147 interested students who would love to order their food. This is still context setting, right? Now I'm about to ask the actual task, which is, can you help me write an email to set up a meeting or call with them? And then even then you can add more adjectives like a kind and compelling. So rather than something super salesy, we want to be friendly, but we also want to be assertive and say, you know, this is a really compelling offer. I'd really like to make this work, right? To set up a meeting or call with them. And you could even say, I'm happy to drop by their restaurant. I know they're busy. So we've beefed off, hey, can you help me write an email to the restaurant folks, into something with a little bit more context. Let's see what it says. It gives you some subject line options, great. And this is the email. So I'm Maxime, a final year student at Manchester, working on, I should have actually really put Westminster. Sorry, guys. I don't know where that came from. Manchester does just have really good street food. Working on a small local project to make it easier for students to order from independent restaurants like yours, especially late at night and at student-friendly prices. We've already had this many students say up and they'd love to order from local spots. If we could get some of the deals. So before we build anything, I'd like to talk and understand what's working. So I really like this email. I think it's a bit wordy, if I'm honest, especially for a busy restaurant owner. So the other thing is we can give feedback, right? So we can say, love this. Could we make it a bit more concise and to the point? I'm worried the restaurant owners won't read all of it. Let's see what it says. Also, honestly, the joy of talking with AI, it's always like, yes, you got this. You're right. So clever of you to think of that. So, you know, if you're ever feeling a bit having a sad day, have a chat with AI. It'll always perk you up. Okay, so now we've got a bit more of a concise email. Like, hey, this is me. I'm working on this project. We have this many students who'd love to order from local spots. I want to chat with you. Would you be able to have, you know, some time? I can pop by when it's quiet. Done. And optional, but very cool, link to landing page. Because if they see that and see like, oh, hey, look, they're actually being serious. This looks like really nice. They'll probably be more inclined to come and have that conversation with me as well. So long story short, like we all know that we can use AI to write emails. I'm not showing you anything necessarily revolutionary. What I hope I'm showing you is how to take bits of information and build on it, and that you can actually use it in a very like versatile way to try and do a bunch of different things for your startup. So not just like, hey, can you tell me if people would be interested in this? Instead of that, setting up a test, getting it to help you write communications, create your landing page, put together test scenarios, maybe even a message that you want to send to the student council or the student, like the local, what's it called? Societies, the student societies, to say, hey, are you interested in this food? Like, we'd love to sponsor, I don't know, some pizza for your next event, right? It can do so much. It's just hard to know what it can do because it's not made obvious from the outside. And so another final thing I'd love to share is, if you're unsure, ask AI how it can help you. It's already starting to do that because it tends to say, hey, I can do this, this, or this as a next step. Would you like me to continue with that? But if you are ever wondering and think, hey, there must be an easier or better way, use AI just to get those answers as well. So I'll pause here. We've got about 10, 15 more minutes. Any questions? If anyone wants to brainstorm or troubleshoot their things, that's absolutely fine. I also know that typically we network folks would love to introduce the next session for you. And I'm not sure, Karina, if you want to do that now or if you want to wait another couple minutes.
We can wait and do that just at the very end. It won't take long. It'll just be like a minute or so.
Perfect. Also, I love that everyone's been sharing their projects. So let's look at this WordPress one as well. 1 minute. So what we're seeing here is that the fact that this is multilingual is because of Claude. And all this text is changing. Fantastic. Go AI. Then we have another one over here. Let's take a look. This is Christina still. Absolutely lovely. And I'll also share one of the first ones we saw. And then I saw there's another question. I'll get to that as well. Oh. Track your tremors, understand triggers, take control. And it's talking about the features. And so what we could say here, for example, depending on the amount of credits that you have, because obviously there's only a couple a day that you get, it's like, okay, great. Can we make sure that people can start signing up? Like if they say start tracking, oh, they can actually just start logging it straight away. How cool is that? Oh, it disappeared. Okay, so when you slide the thing, it gets an error. So good to know. We shall not slide that for now. But this is really the beauty of things that we can make in today's world. So awesome job, folks. So we have a question about GPT-5 for accurate valuation. Probably not. It can give you a starting point. Like it'll be better than just like making up a number completely from scratch. But what I would do instead with this question is I'd like to put together an accurate valuation of my company in a similar style to a VC. What information do you need? What's all the stuff that I need to collect and put together in order to create an accurate valuation? And it will probably say, we want to know how many customers you've got. We want to know how much you're selling. We want to know your overhead. We want to know your margins, et cetera, et cetera. And when you then have all this information, you can add that, and then it should be able to give you a decent valuation. But I would first start with getting it to break down for you what information you need to provide about your business, and then see the calculation that it can put together. I hope that helps. And you're right that VCs don't always share their own models. And so I think what you'd be looking at is something a bit more standardized, which is there are ways to evaluate a company. But for VCs specifically, especially if you're still pre-revenue, there are, they do that in their own way. So you won't get something, again, super accurate, but at least you'll get an interesting analysis of, this is the value of your business. Here's also how you can make it more valuable, right? Perhaps if you are pre-revenue, if you can land 3 contracts, like 3 B2B contracts, that'll make your valuation significantly more impactful and more worth than doing that. So you can also use it as a tool to help prioritize your next steps. All right. Also, folks, if you can fill out the attendance form, I see that popping up in the chat. And lastly, Ruben. Oh, Ruben's stepped away.
No, all good. Go for it.
No, this is actually the 4th session. The very first one was called Emerging Technologies. And then I've done one in fall of, that was in 22, Emerging Technologies. And then we've done 23, 24, and now 25. So this is the 4th AI session, and so much has changed. I found my old slides, but hey, anyway. We've got another question. When it comes to marketing, what's the best way to transform single ideas into comprehensive content strategies? Right. The single most important thing is to define a brand tone of voice, because nowadays everyone gets ChatGPT to do their content and their marketing. And there's two ways to make it sound like you. One, use your own content, your actual own content. So for example, if you're on a phone call with a friend, or you're on Zoom or on Teams or whatever, and you're talking about your idea, then get that transcript if possible, because the way that you're kind of naturally talking about it, it will give your ChatGPT or whatever tool you use so much context about what you're trying to do, why you're doing it, why it's important to you, what you think is really cool about your product, etc. Right? Similarly, if you've got a single piece of content, like you've created a YouTube video or you've created some Instagram posts, take that text, take those transcripts from the YouTube videos, whatever it is, and all put it into your ChatGPT. Then the next thing to do is, based on the way that you talk and so on, can it put together a brand tone of voice or particular rules around how it should speak? So for me, I really like things that are bold, concise, straightforward, no jargon, etc. Because I really don't like the long-winded blah, 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 blah stuff that sometimes comes out of AI. And so I have to specifically say that every single time I create content. When you have those two pieces of context, the type of content that you get from AI tools will be incrementally better. I'm actually helping a lot of different startups and businesses with that right now. Specifically, I do a bunch of marketing automation for them. And these are the two key things I do to make it actually sound like them and have authentic marketing content come out of it. So, Michaela, I hope that answers your question. If you have a follow-up question, do let me know. But yes, transcripts and context and tone of voice. Sarah, that's transcripts. So transcripts, any kind of content that you have already. So that could be you talking to your friend about it, you dictating a bunch of stuff about it, a YouTube video that you've already made, existing Instagram posts, anything you've already got. That'll be your context and your transcripts. And pair that with the tone of voice.
Amazing, guys. I think if there are any more questions, please do drop them in the chat. Thank you so much, Maxime. The session was so great. I feel like I really appreciate all that practical advice. I'm sure everyone else did as well. And it feels like AI is moving so fast. It can feel so hard to keep up with it, but the sites and the resources you shared all sound absolutely amazing. And I can see from the chat that everyone appreciates it just as much as I do.
Super glad. You're very welcome.
Yeah, thank you. So just to wrap up, guys, we've mentioned many times in the chat, we've got the attendance form. Just as a quick reminder, we have a session in 2 weeks' time. I'm so sorry, my camera fully stopped working, so you guys can't see me, but you can hear me. I'm just going to share my screen one last time, just to show you that you can sign up for the session happening in 2 weeks' time. Let's see. Yeah, so next week is engagement week. So we have the Careers and Enterprise Festival happening. You can book that there. And then the week after, we have our session Product Market Fit. You can click that and sign up there. Also, if you guys did want to reach out to us, like we mentioned last time, to book an appointment with us or anything like that, you can do that. I'll share my screen one more time to show you. In the meantime, while I'm sharing this, if you guys have any more questions, please do share them in the chat with Maxim. Can you see my screen? Perfect. Okay, so we've got the a link to our LinkedIn group, to our newsletter, and in the corner there you can see that you can book an appointment with us if you just type in that URL. Am I forgetting anything? I think that is it from me. Just the attendance form there, and yeah, the link is in the chat. Oh, Pioneer Bursary. Obviously, if you guys are looking for funding, we have the Pioneer Bursary coming up. So It's £500 that you guys can apply for. You can only access that if you are signed up to our program. So again, if you follow that webpage by going to westminster.ac.uk/we network, go to the Startup 101 page, scroll down like I mentioned, and you sign up. Everything will be available on the Accelerator app. So then we'll be able to email you and let you know, but you won't get any communication if you don't sign up. So if you haven't signed up already, that's your cue to do that. Link is in the chat. Right, I think that is it from us. Again, thank you so much, Maxime. I think that's it, guys. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you for having me. As always, it was such a pleasure to hang out with you tonight and go over all this AI stuff with you all. And yeah, if you have any final questions, pop them in the chat. But otherwise, you should have the slides and the workbook. All of that will probably be on the We Network platform. And yeah, good luck. Go make awesome things.
Thank you so much, guys. Thank you, Maxime.
Thank you, Maxime.
Thanks, Maxime. That was a great session.
You're very welcome.